I mean, I don't know what could have happened. Your wife could have stepped out of the photo, or maybe the camera didn't work, or maybe there's a magical ghost. I don't know.
Wow.
Hello and welcome to the Abroad in Japan podcast. Probably the best way of learning about life in Japan without actually being in Japan. I'm your host, Chris Broad, and we're joined as always by England's top Japan enthusiast, Mr. Pete Dawson himself. Pete, how the devil are you doing? What's going on?
I'm good. I was very lucky to manage to get to the studio to enjoy an Abroad in Japan podcast / drink, an Aldi Dark Thunder energy drink at 6 a.m. because, Chris, where I am in the world, we are beset by rabble-rousing. We're beset by fire and anger and goodness. Where I am actually, what happened was last night, a thing that everyone was very worried about. We boarded up all of our shops. Everybody in the street was very worried about these. I'm gonna say it, racists turning up in our town, and they didn't turn up. So now I imagine there's a lot of companies pulling down a lot of boards this morning. So I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna collect as much chipboard as I possibly can, because let me tell you, the prices of wood in this fair city are astronomical. So yeah, all good in the hood in Southend, and the sun's shining, the birds are singing, and I'm having a lovely bloody time, to be honest. I just woke up to hear the news that a famous Australian man has sadly passed away. Are you familiar with the succulent Chinese meal man?
Yeah. Well, the guy who got arrested and yes.
I see you know your judo well, sir. What is the charge? A man who wants a succulent Chinese meal. Big fan favourite, this man. He's finally, after about 2 years of doing pretty much endless interviews about that day in the summer, meeting the policeman who arrested him. He sadly passed away at 82 years. So Jack Carlson, a true one-off. A true bon vivant, a true roustabout, a true thief. Just is now no sadly with us. Is sadly with us, but it's. I like local colour. I like people in town who refuse to play by the rules. Not necessarily do the crimes, but I do like the ones who just have a bit of a giggle with life, and they do. If you're going to get arrested for stealing a Chinese meal, at least call it a succulent Chinese meal. A succulent Chinese meal.
That's right. Oh, yeah, sad times. May he forever be remembered for the sentence he spoke.
Imagine that. That's all it took. Back then, though, it was a lot harder to go viral. Nowadays, you say hock to her and you're all over on the internet and you've earned £1 million. But this guy, he probably never made any money out of it back in the day. There's no way to monetize. Reality. There was no cameo.
I'd strongly urge people to go and watch the video. What's the name of the guy again?
His name's Jack Carlson, but if you just type in succulent Chinese meal, the man's face will be, front and centre in your Google search. But a real kind of Antipodean hero for many people who dream of dining and dashing.
I've had a bumpy few days. The studio power went out. I was like, because we got loads of lights and things on right here. I put them on, then the power just went right. And I used to do that in Sendai a lot because we had like a really old shit studio breaker. I have to go in and turn the power back on, and it never happened before here in the whole year we've been here. And it happened yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And then I couldn't work out how to turn the breaker on, and I got a few people in, and we just couldn't work it out. So we called an electrician. He turned up and he was like, "It'll cost 300,000 yen, and we have to replace half of Tokyo's electricity power supply." And we were all like, "What the fuck?" And I was really scared that there would be no podcasts, no videos, no anything happening in the studio for a long time, especially as Orbon is here next week, the big old Japanese holiday, right? So it was like a worst case scenario. No power for like a week or two. And then the owner of the building came up. He's like a nice old man in his 70s. And he went, "Oh, I saw this there," and just flipped the switch, and it all came back on. And the electrician looked like such a bell end. Because he was like,
"That's so bad."
Yeah. And like, he was a bit shady.
Did he not know?
He's a real prick, actually, because he didn't properly inspect the breaker. He sort of turned up and just went, "I just replaced the whole thing. Got to get a whole new one." And I was like, "You didn't test anything. He didn't test."
He just looked at it and went. I'm sure, like if you can see like burnt like contacts or crimps on the wire and stuff. If you can see like fire or damage or something, fine, you'll need to replace something. But there's nothing wrong with it, and you just sort of go, "Well, why isn't there power?" Like you got to get in there, get your multimeter out, surely.
Stick your fingers in the wattage.
Get your fingers in the
volts.
terminals. Yeah, lovely.
It was quite annoying. I was very glad though. Turned out the owner of the building, 70-year-old guy, is like an award-winning electrician. That's what he did before owning and running an office building. And
that's helpful. That is helpful.
It was very helpful, but he sort of like berated subtly the electrician. He was like, "We must replace the whole building," and the man was like, "No, you just press the switch for 3 seconds, innit?" And I was sitting on like the sofa, kind of like laughing my head off, and sort of very relieved as well. But my God, that was a close call. Thank God for the nice owner and his wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, he must have experienced that before. He must have like sort of gone. It sounds like the sort of job that a really gifted, celebrated electrician wouldn't even need to sort of test himself on, so to speak. Like it sounds like something that happens all the time. It sounds like there's a breaker further up the chain that isolates each individual unit that the guy didn't even look at. Jesus,
shocking stuff. It was really disheartening and annoying, and but thank God we had the studio up and running. Luckily the aircon still worked, even though there was nothing powered on. So I sat in the studio all yesterday in like absolute darkness with the aircon blowing in.
With lovely
if that had been
aircon.
working, it would have been like roast abroad in Japan.
A silly hot cave. I would say that like, there's solutions nowadays. Couldn't you get one of those big sort of what would you sort of call it size-wise? The size of a small Labrador batteries that you see.
Yeah,
around.
I do have one somewhere. We got one for Journey Across Japan, non-stop north. Remember how we had like editors in the van for like a few weeks on the road?
Course,
we had like a mega battery that I bought.
Did you ever run out
of the energy, of the power? I don't think so. But in the end, the editors didn't work in the van as we had planned, and they set up shop in hotel rooms, and my mega battery went to waste. In fact, I don't even know where it is. Legend has it, Ian Rudd has it somewhere, tucked away, secretly powering half of West Tokyo.
He goes into the big Starbucks on Shibuya Crossing, and he plugs it in, and then he takes it home, and he has free electricity.
That Starbucks doesn't exist anymore, so that won't be there. It's gone.
Oh my goodness, what's happening to my fair Shibuya? What's going on?
Need to get over to Shibuya before it's all gone. We got a story this week from Nicholas, who says, "Hi Pachinko Pete and Kakui Chris. I have a spooky story from a recent trip of an odd night in Kanazawa." Ooh, spooky story. We don't have many of these. "My wife and I had spent the day exploring the city of Gold's Nagamachi Samurai District and Kazuemachi Geisha District, staying out late to enjoy its beautiful, dimly lit back alleys and hidden shrines without any of the tourists. Love it there. My God, Kanazawa's nice. Get yourself over there. It's only like 2 hours on the bullet train these days. After some strolling, we found ourselves by the small and pretty Ishiura Shrine, which has its own torii gate path that winds up the hill, twisting out of sight. My wife had bought a new Sony camera, especially for the trip, and I stopped midway through the path of torii gates to take a photo of her just ahead of me. A few clicks later, I looked down at the camera display to check the photos, and while I could see the torii gate path in the photo, my wife had completely vanished. I was dumbfounded. She tried to assure me, saying that she must have moved or the exposure setting was wrong, but I couldn't comprehend what had happened. People being disfigured or blurred in photos is a common and foreboding occurrence in Japanese horror, and here we were at a shrine at night with something funny going on. I'm not a believer in anything spiritual, but suddenly I was faced with something that I simply could not explain, and the camera didn't stop acting up there. Completely independently, the camera began suddenly zooming into unoccupied parts of the torii gate path, and when I looked at a photo on my iPhone as a last-ditch effort to record our evening, this came out completely blurry. Starting to feel nervous, we decided to give our thanks and apologies to the shrine, bow deeply, and make a quick escape back to our creaky old Machiya townhouse, hoping nothing unnatural had come back with us. What do you think was going on? Have you ever had any spooky occurrences in Japan? Safely back in the UK, Nicholas, with his broken camera." That's a bit odd, though. I mean,
like the sound of that. I mean, had drink been taken? That's where I
get in the
first
photo.
go.
Get in the photo.
Did you have a succulent strong zero?
I wonder. We'll never. Although Ishiura Shrine is, it's the oldest shrine in Kanazawa, built like 1,500 years ago. So could be some spirits. Could be something going on there. Who's to say?
Some what do they call it? Who's better son? What's the old the spooky spirits? The spooky spirits and
can't remember, but I love that street. What was it called? Spooky Kyoto Street.
Spooky Kyoto Street.
What was it called?
Thinking like Beto-Beto-san was that ghost that I'm obsessed with, that I mentioned on the podcast a few times, where if Beto-Beto-san, if you hear Beto-Beto behind you, you have to step to the right and let Beto-Beto through, and say, after you, Beto-Beto-san.
It sounds like somebody whispering some subliminal messaging in Las Vegas to somebody. Better. All on red.
It reminds me of Bebeto, the Brazilian footballer from 1994. I've actually had a look at the old Ishihara Shrine. Apparently, a lot of shrines, you know those like little fortunes you get? You buy them out of a little vending machine. And then I think you tie them onto like a wall or something. You tie them onto the shrine.
You tie it onto the little
shrine posts.
Thingamajig, the post.
Yeah, sort of. Most of them have like about 10 to 12 fortunes. You've actually got 17 fortunes you can possibly get in Ishihara Shrine. One being the most luckiest and 17th being the unluckiest. You can either have superb fortune times 3. That's a 1 in 3,000 chance of getting that. All up to striking fortune. And that's a 1 in 500 chance of getting this. Great fortune, good fortune, good fortune, good fortune times 3. Small fortune, small fortune, uncertain luck or future luck, uncertain times 2 luck, very uncertain luck, uncertain misfortune, that you've got a 1 in 1,000 chance of getting that, and you've really shat the bed if you get misfortune. You've got a 1 in 2,000 chance of getting that.
And this is the Omikuji little paper. Like, I remember last year Natsuki bought one at a shrine, and it was like great misfortune. And he opened it, and he was like, fucking fortune, and he sort of bought like 3. And he kept opening them until he got fortune. And it was like, does that cancel out the misfortune? If you have him...
He's like the image of what a gaijin is, do you know what I mean? Like, for Japanese. He's just such a naughty boy. He just refuses to conform or respect his own country's rules.
That's true, it's true. I do like this story, though. It's quite interesting. If you have the photo, Nicholas, as somebody who takes a lot of photos and images, I would be keen to examine the photo. I mean, I don't know what could have happened. Your wife could have stepped out of the photo, or maybe the camera didn't work, or maybe there's a magical ghost. I don't know. It's one of the three.
Some kind of weird energy going on in there that's affecting the cameras. I mean, shrines certainly, like at night, are quite spooky, aren't they? I would say that, like,
absolutely.
With we were in Kyoto, weren't we? And me and Charlotte and I think Ian went for a wander in the shrine.
Fushiminari, you went up the torii gates, right?
Yeah. And we just kept losing each other. We're like there. And then, like, Charlotte would disappear, and I would disappear, and then Charlotte couldn't find me, Ian couldn't find me, and it was just a series of unfortunate, losing of each other. Spooky.
Very spooky, very spooky. But, yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything spooky. We talked about this last week, actually. We touched upon it. Some scary places in Japan we've been to, and, I do get spooked out of some places, but I don't necessarily believe in the spirit world. But... they do believe it in Japan, and they believe it in a sort of a nice way. The spirits are not always pure evil. Most spirits in Japan are friendly, and there's like a nice moral to the spirits and their story. But but I'll go and check it out. Ishihara Shrine in Kanazawa. Next time you're in Kanazawa, guys, go and have a look around. Get your camera out at night and see what you can take. But speaking of disappearing apparitions, this week's story involves disappearing foreign guests at a Japanese inn. A similar mystery, but one I fear with a far more obvious answer as to why the foreign guests disappeared without paying. Pete, fill us in. What's going on?
Let me take you, Chris, to the mountains of the Nagana. Are you drinking like a pre-mixed gin and tonic from Marks and Spencer's? That looks like what you're doing.
I'm drinking Maison Perrier Forever Peach. So I don't like sparkling. I don't like sparkling water. Right? I'll never like carbonated water. It makes me like bleh. But this has been the gateway drug into carbonated water. It's just like sparkling beverage with peach flavour. It's got 1 calorie. There's no sugar or sweeteners. It's just like a carbonated water, very subtly flavoured with peach. And I've noticed now that I can drink sparkling water as a result. It's sort of adapted my taste buds.
I hate to echo the thoughts and feelings and ideas of one scumbag Andrew Tate, but sparkling water is magnificent. He has strong opinions about sparkling water, but I think I do very much and have always absolutely loved sparkling water. But as I get older, I want the bubbles to sort of calm down a little bit. I don't know. I've become softer as I get older. And
Your mouth's not as strong as it once was.
Well, I used to be like, give me all the bubbles, make it stronger. I get a soda stream, and I'm like banging the soda stream until there's as much fizzy water in there as possible. But nowadays I'm very much like I just want soft carbonation. So I think that there are gateways to getting the sparkling water. But if you've never really tried a lot of sparkling water, Chris, I mean, I think you can have a great time because it is the best water.
Flavoured with peach. Anyway, back to the foreigners' prick.
Back to Nagano Prefecture. Takayama Matsu Kawakan. Looks like a very nice place to spend a night or two. It's a Japanese inn, basically, in the mountains of Nagano Prefecture. And it boasts traditional tatami rooms, private saunas, and open-air bathing or bathing facilities. And meals meals using locally caught wild game as well. So I don't know whether that means rabbit, deer, or flying beast. But either way, delicious. Anyway, last week, the inn welcomed its very first guests from overseas, and the members of staff were brushing up on their English in order to cordially greet them when they arrived. However, the staff never got to say goodbye because the travellers appear to have suddenly left without going through their checkout procedure, and also without paying for their room.
Taking my ghosts, or just didn't want to pay.
Ghosts. Yeah, the hosts posted about the incident on its official Twitter account on Tuesday, including photos of police officers that had called to the hotel to discuss the situation. The two foreigners had checked in on Friday with a reservation to stay for 2 nights. The pair went out on Saturday morning, but when they hadn't returned to the inn by late that night, the employee became concerned that they went to check their room, discovering that they'd taken all of their luggage with them when they left the inn. The tweet said, "Our foreign country guests who've made a reservation for multiple nights left without paying. The police have looked into the matter for us, but there isn't any sign of being able to locate them. Our entire staff was looking forward to having people from overseas see what a wonderful place Takayama is, and we feel so betrayed and sad. We wish that they would have shown even the bare minimum of courtesy." So it's not specified in the tweet, but given the rural location of the inn, it's likely that the guests had booked a package that included not only the room but food as well, which is kind of double jeopardy, double damage for the business. And could the people have just gone missing? You know, people go missing in the forests, in the wilds.
Yeah, but if their luggage is gone as well, that's a bit suspect, isn't it? Oh, their luggage is gone.
I'm a bad detective.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Abducted by aliens, maybe?
And their luggage? Again, the aliens travelling across space and time need a box of like underwear, a bag full of shit.
Do you not think that sometimes when you check into a hotel, you're occasionally surprised by charges at the end of your stay because you are under the assumption that you actually paid at the start, either paid at the start or paid online? If you pay online sometimes when I turn up at a hotel, I always assume I've already paid. Do you know what I mean? Because I go through hotels.com or
you're part of the problem,
stuff like that.
You're running away with that.
No. Well, when I was in Korea, we were in Jeju, that island at the bottom. And me and my friend Craig, Aberdeen, Ryokan, clearly, and Pete, Hartlepool, Ryokan, clearly. We had like a whole evening of drinks in this bar, and we were just playing darts all night for about 3 or 4 hours. And then we left, didn't think anything of it, went to our hostelry, went to sleep. And then the next day we popped in for one more to play a couple more games of darts because we love Japanese and Korean darts systems. And the woman just went, "We ran through the streets looking for you last night because you didn't pay your bill." I was like, "Oh, not sorry." I think sometimes when you're used to a very formal, you get a drink, you pay your money, and then you drink the drink, and then you pay more money. And when you're used to that, going to like a kind of a table service sort of system, you can sometimes fall foul, especially if drinks have been partaken. But I mean, I don't really buy it on this occasion, but possibly or potentially they just thought they'd already paid before they actually entered the hotel. But maybe it was just a booking fee, or I don't know. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, and they've clearly just wine dined and buggered off, basically.
Wine dined and buggered. I mean, I remember when I was with Connor on the first cycle, we checked into a hotel, and you do often pay at the end sometimes. But anyway, it looked like the procedure was over. They gave us our keys, and we were like, okay, we must be paying when we leave.
Yeah.
And we started walking away towards the elevator. We got all the way to the elevator across the corridor, and then this woman came out from behind the door from the reception desk, was like, you have to pay now. And we were like, oh my God, okay, fine, no problem, just calm down. And they were like, but they'd been really like curt and like really not nice, basically, during the check-in, because this was when it was Connor, myself, Ian and Paul, right? We had to book this hotel, extremely remote corner of Hokkaido, and there was no room for Paul and for Ian. And when we got there, we were like, by any chance, is there another room for our friends? And they were like, no. And we're like, oh, okay. And I was like, it's because they have to drive back for 2 hours otherwise to the town where we started. And they were just like, stared like they want to kill me. And I was like, okay, I understand. And then
that famous Hokkaido loveliness.
It was an obscure corner of Hokkaido. We didn't have much luck in that part of Hokkaido. This is sort of Wakanai, very extreme north area, where we had a few sort of awkward moments up there, to be honest, and that was one of the worst, I think. Just quite rude and very. I don't know if like non-Japanese folks ever found that hotel, because it was very, very remote. There's no reason a foreign tourist would ever go near that sort of neck of the woods, really. So I think they're confused by our presence.
Well, they sort of say that that Russians have very different kind of styles of kind of like looking after people in hotels and stuff. So maybe it's that influence because it's so close coming down.
Entirely possible. So yeah, I mean, on the surface, this sounds like a sad story, right? Excited to see foreign tourists,
and it's the sort of story that you wouldn't normally see on a global stage, but there's a real appetite for basically saying that foreigners are scumbags at the moment in Japan.
But I will say this: I've looked up the inn, right? It's impossibly remote. It's quite a little rundown town. I'm sure it's lovely. I do love, I love these sort of remote hot spring towns. They're kind of cool. But I'm looking at the reviews, and it is a very mixed bag of reviews. Some are 5 out of 5. There are quite a few 1 out of 5 reviews. One of them says, very darty. I presumably mean very dirty, unless it's very darty.
It's very darts with me.
Yeah, maybe they've darts.
My friend from Aladdin.
But the very darty is also accompanied by 7 photos of the bathroom, and there's a lot of black mould around. There's another review that says, the wiring in the hallways and bathrooms is quite unsanitary. I was interested in the lighting that looked like a love hotel. Most of the staff are good. I think it's fine if you only use the sauna. In with no hospitality, the amount of food was clearly less than in the sample photo. One meal only filled about 6 minutes. I love that.
I eat for time.
Measurement. A unit of measurement.
Oh, it's
time.
all you can eat. It's 24 hour.
And these are Japanese reviews, actually. This one's from a year ago. All the staff members wear T-shirts, and the customer service is not in the polite language typical of a Ryokan, but rather in the formal language of an izakaya. As soon as I entered the room, it smelled like mould. There was dust everywhere, and the food I ordered never arrived. 2 out of 5. If you're looking for a sauna, you'll probably be satisfied. The room is normal. They had hot spring buns, and they were delicious. Yeah.
Oh,
but then they gave it a 2 out of 5 rating. So don't understand why.
It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't sound like the Ritz, does it?
No. Somebody wrote, "I like the scenery." 2 out of 5. Japanese reviews, they are terrifying. There's never any logic, and doesn't make sense. But there's lots of good reviews as well. I don't think there's a single place in Japan that hasn't got a few bad reviews. 1 month ago, a young couple bought an inn that went out of business and renovated it. I think the hot spring baths and saunas are wonderful. Guests can use the large bath. So I think clearly it's been renovated, maybe perhaps since the bad reviews I just read out. So, but we have had cases where people have walked out of hotels in Japan in the past where things have gone wrong. I mean, Connor and I walked out of a hotel, didn't we? We did pay, admittedly, begrudgingly, for the room that was comprised of mould, blood, and just rubbish, which I'll never forget. But
they could have just been slightly rude, well, very rude, and just sort of walked out because they were just disgusted. But they should have paid for at least the day that they spent.
They should have paid for it, and yeah, I think clearly just taking advantage of a nice inn, really. It didn't even specify. It didn't specify where they were from, did it?
No, they didn't actually. No, they didn't specify.
But we got this news story from like a tweet as well, I believe. Like it's sourced from a tweet of these folks. So, yeah, we don't know the full story here. We don't know the full story.
What is the charge? A succulent hotel room.
But yeah, I'd like to find out more. I'd like to find out what happened. If you're listening to this and you are the ones that left the Matsukawa-kan Ryokan in Nagano, let us know. Also, I discovered that this is in the district of Takayama in Nagano, and Takayama's in Gifu, so there's another place called Takayama, just to make things even more confusing. Wild, wacky world of Japanese geography. Back in just a moment, guys, with your stories, comments and questions over in this fax machine. In this fax machine. The fax machine.
Wow.
And we're back with the fax machine. What have we got this week from our listeners, Mr. Dawson?
From this fax machine, I tear one piece of paper. Nick from the US of flipping A has got in touch. Hello, Mr. Chris and Mr. Pete. Like many others in a digital age who want to learn more about history, particularly World War II, I go on YouTube. There are thousands of interviews with World War II veterans sharing their experiences and struggles. However, when I search for Japanese World War II veteran interviews, there seem to be only a handful available. Have you ever come across any Japanese World War II veterans during your times in Japan? Do you know any Japanese friends who have family members that are veterans of the war and have shared their opinions and thoughts on it? Thank you for both of your time reading this. Keep up the good work, Nick from the USA. I mean, usually when you're on the losing end, you would probably say from the business of history on the wrong side, you probably don't talk about it all that much. So there's probably quite a few stories being shared, especially because Japanese presumably live a fair whack longer than us in the West. You'd think that you would be a little bit more able to share your experiences, but yeah, like not they can't be kind of proud of that part of the history, surely.
No, I've never actually met. No, I've never met a veteran of World War II in Japan. I mean, there's obviously a few days ago it was the anniversary of Hiroshima, and there's lots of folks who have survived that and talk about that and share sort of the horrors of nuclear war. So that's really important, a really important message to share. But no, I haven't. The subject of World War II in Japan, it's sort of it's just never really covered much. I don't really know what they learn in Japan about World War II, but it's definitely sort of glazed over. I remember going into like a few history classes when I was a teacher, and it's very much like the Edo era. We had toothbrushes made of bamboo and smiles, and like it's more like they cover that aspect of history. And it's just not covered much.
I think surely with situations like that, presumably in 1945, the Japanese military were demilitarized, so for quite a long time. And although obviously they spend a lot of money, they're ranked top 10 as good. Can you have a good military? But defense spending is high. It's 1.6 of their GDP. Anyway, they haven't got historically in the last sort of 40 years got involved in a lot of stuff. Do you know what I mean? We have had Iraq, we've had the Falkland, we've been involved all around the world.
There's a book, isn't there, of every country the UK's ever fought, and there's 3 countries the UK's not had some sort of battle with. Like I think one of them's Andorra.
Andorra, they're really
close. North of Spain and between France, whatever. The UK is just the wars are endless, aren't they?
We did get involved in a lot of stuff. And didn't cover ourselves in glory, but I think it's probably because they were demilitarized for such a long time, and also they just haven't got involved. Their defense spending is probably because their proximity to North Korea, obviously, but everything else is kind of just they probably don't talk about the military all that much, simply because there's there's no good news, I guess. There's no positive news about Japanese military, really, is there?
I mean, Japan is militarizing pretty heavily at the moment, because of North Korea, China. Potentially taking over Taiwan in the next 5 to 10 years or whatnot. So they do need to, unfortunately, rearm themselves somewhat more as a deterrent than anything, right, to prevent bad things from happening. But we shall see. I remember when Shinzo Abe former prime minister like changed the constitution to make so Japan could come to the aid of its allies for defense purposes and whatnot. That caused a lot of protests. It's a very rare thing in Japan, right, to see a protest. There were a lot of protests, and then died off, and that was it, and it was done. And I think, Japan's increasingly going to have to step up with its military. Well, I know they're building down all the island chain towards Taiwan. Like when we were on, what's it called? Ishigaki. One of the most southern islands in Japan. We were driving through the middle of nowhere. We just finished filming like a nice blue cave, and it was very, it's a beautiful natural island. It's nice. It's really nice. That's a very unique place. But there was a massive site under construction, and I trying to work out what it was, and I looked it up, and it's like a huge military base, like a barracks that's being built there. Much to the locals' dismay, because all these islands along the island chain of south of Japan has to be sort of militarized and ready to go on the off chance that bad things happen. China taking Taiwan, so it's a tough one. But Japan will be ready, hopefully. We got a question from Jed. He says, "Hello, Chris and Pete. I'm a Brit in Australia and I work remotely. In Australia, the public libraries are a brilliant resource with secure, quiet spaces to work, free bookable rooms, and some great sunny spaces outside. I'll be heading to Japan soon for 6 weeks. So how easy do you think it'll be to work remotely from public spaces like cafes and libraries? Is Japan just as accessible for Australia? Just accessible as Australia for remote workers, or should I plan to find more official places to work on projects from afar? Many thanks, Jed from Australia." Cafe culture, people do sit in Starbucks all day in Japan and do their homework or do their work, and there's like WeWork and a few other options around. But
is there WeWork? Cool.
There's WeWork.
I wonder how many forms you got to fill in for that.
Yeah, if it's still around. And there's manga cafes and things like that. Karaoke. I know Ryokan used to do a lot of work in karaoke booths when he was travelling around cities.
People screaming as Ryotaro just works, tapping away in his Excel spreadsheets.
He'll bash out "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey, and then I'll get down to work on a spreadsheet with his reasonably priced
Zoom call.
Coca-Cola.
He's having Zoom calls with his business contacts, and he's just like... Yeah, I wonder if he gets do you get an Ethernet cable? That's always a bit of a touch.
In karaoke.
Get an Ethernet cable.
I don't know, but it's a good place to work. But no, cafes. Just get a cafe, sit there. I remember when I moved to Sendai, I would frequently go to like Cafe Veloce, which is a really crappy coffee shop chain that's very, very cheap. The coffee's okay. It's very cheap. The interiors are quite drab, but it was a nice place to get out, sit, and work. Because my first apartment in Sendai, if you might recall, was like a box of, it's just like a coffin essentially, and I had to get out of it to work. So good place to remote work though. Really good place, Japan. And also,
Wild.
I remember the first time I worked in Starbucks on a video in Hiroshima. I was doing something. I went to the toilet and I was gone a few minutes, came back, and all my laptop wallet was still there on the table. In hindsight, that was pretty risky of me to leave it all there, but I was like, I'll have to pack it up, put it in a bag. I'll probably lose my seat. Fuck it, I'll just go to the bathroom. And I got away with it. So
you just eyeballed the people all around going, "You dare touch that." I'm going to spark out.
Keep the stories, questions, comments coming into abroadjapanpodcast@gmail.com, guys. We'll be back later in the week to do it over again. But for now, have yourself a great few days, and we'll see you right back here to do it all over again on the Abroad Japan podcast. Remember, always pay at the Ryokan. Bye for now.